Let's take a look at the weekend's auction results. Nationally, the clearance rate was 62.7% from 1,663 auctions. In Sydney, there were 661 auctions with a clearance rate of 62.3%. Melbourne had 642 auctions with a clearance rate of 67.8%. Brisbane had 59 auctions with a clearance rate of 49.2%. Adelaide had 48 auctions with a clearance rate of 81.3%. And Canberra had 54 auctions with a clearance rate there of 64.8%. Joining me now is Anne Flaherty from REA Group. Anne, thanks for your time today. Just how strong are clearance rates right now?
Look, we have seen clearance rates come back a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but they are still pretty healthy. They're still much higher than what we were seeing over the same period last year. So overall, pretty strong.
And then housing prices in general. How have housing prices been tracking over the past few months?
Well, housing prices have been remarkably resilient against the interest rate rises that we were seeing. What we did see last month was that property price growth actually picked up a bit. We have seen prices grow every month this year. And now that we've had 3 months where interest rates have held steady, it looks like that's helping to increase that buyer demand, and that's also contributing to increasing prices.
Okay, well, we're into the spring selling season now. Just how much stock is there on the market at the moment?
Well, we actually had an unseasonably busy finish to the winter period, and we're certainly in store to see a very strong spring. We have seen a real pickup in listings over spring so far this year. At the same time, we've also seen buyer inquiries pick up. So this is good news for sellers out there because buyer inquiries are really strong. It's also good news for buyers because the fact that we're seeing more properties being listed for sale is providing more choice.
Yeah, what sort of interest or traffic are you getting on the website right now from buyers?
Well, what's really interesting to see is that we've had a really big pickup in listings, but the total number of inquiries we're getting per listing has actually held steady over the past month. So what that means is that buyer demand has actually increased in line with that increase in supply.
And you've got a little report today on rental vacancies. Just how are rental vacancies tracking right now in Australia?
Well, rental vacancies actually hit a record low over August. Nationally, they're sitting at just 1.1%. In certain cities like Adelaide and Perth and Brisbane, the vacancy rate is actually now well below 1%. So we're continuing to see rents rise off the back of that. And it's really, really challenging conditions for tenants out there looking for a property.
And vacancy rates in New South Wales and Queensland at the lowest level on record?
Yep, that's right. So across Australia, we're continuing to see lower vacancy rates, and this probably isn't going to change anytime soon. We are definitely seeing more and more competition for rental properties hitting the market. We're also starting to see signs that more people are looking to move into share accommodation in order to deal with that.
There's a big story that's come out of Canberra today. The Greens are supporting Labor's housing bill, but one of the things that's not in the bill that the Greens are after is a rental freeze applied to rents. What do you make of having a rental freeze across Australia to kind of help people out that are really struggling?
Look, it's so tough for people out there. And when we think about something like rental caps, they sound like a great idea, but unfortunately, they actually lead to quite severe consequences. And ultimately, even if they might, help some tenants in the short term, over the long term, rent caps actually are more detrimental to tenants. One of the reasons for this is that we know from other markets around the world where they have implemented policies like this, such as San Francisco, it dramatically reduced the total amount of rental properties. Investors sell up when rent caps come in. In Australia, we have been seeing for several years now more property investors selling. And because 90% of the homes that are rented around Australia are owned by private landlords, by decreasing the incentive to invest, ultimately that's terrible for tenants.
And I was talking to Angus Moore from REA Group a couple of weeks ago about how housing affordability is at its lowest level in more than 3 decades. But how is the transition now going from being a renter into buying your first home? How difficult is that process becoming?
Well, it's actually become more difficult than ever. And of course, this is another reason why we're seeing pressure in the rental market. So if you think about moving from being a renter to a first home buyer, because interest rates increased so much, the average amount people can borrow is about 30% less. But property prices are actually very close to the highest levels they've ever been. In certain cities around Australia, they are at new peak levels. So what that means is that people have to save a bigger deposit, but they can borrow less and their monthly repayments are going to be even higher. So people are being locked out of buying and staying longer as renters.
Anne Flaherty from REA Group, thanks for coming on the show today.